It's Monday, November 1st, coming up live on The View. Kick off your week with a full show of the hottest topics on television. From how Jon Stewart's rally packed the Washington Mall, to outraged readers saying Shape magazine put a husband stealer on the cover. And if the co-host would tell a friend if they were getting too fat or too thin. Plus, new terror threats have America on high alert. And ABC's Brian Ross has the latest on the suspicious packages found on cargo planes, the latest warnings from Al-Qaeda, and if the worst is yet to come. And the madam of the high-priced escort service who called former New York Governor Eliot Spitzer Client 9 is exposing how Ashley Dupre wasn't the only escort he paid for sex. All that and more, coming up live on The View.
Kind of wonderful. And welcome to a day of hot topics on The View. Yeah. Let's get right into it, because tomorrow is election day and it can't come soon enough, because how sick are you of all these ads and the robocalls? Is it making you crazy?
Oh my gosh, this weekend I was in LA and I was at a friend's house and he got so many robocalls. Yeah. It was just like, stop it already.
At dinner time.
We'll be at the we'll be there. We're gonna vote.
But $4.2 billion was spent, and I read one thing that said they don't even really work either.
No, they just annoy you.
It's just a waste of money.
They call during dinner.
It's
no, it's enough to make me turn Democrat. Leave me alone. Enough.
Yeah, see, what does work? Democrats do the same thing. I mean, it's insane.
And once you tell them you're going to, they want to give you their spiel anyway.
If the ads don't work, what does work?
I think that it's not that the ads don't. I don't think that the ads don't work. I just think they are overkill. Yeah. They are just overkill, and every 5 seconds with the phone calls and the ads, and it's like, give me the dog food ads again. At least give me one or two.
According to Time magazine.
Yeah.
Okay. Over 10,000 ads on television this year. Only a handful move voters.
Sure.
So,
And it's the ones that identify with. I think, is it Frank Lutz who did the study? I loved his analysis, right? This isn't Time. Yeah. I think he does a great job, because he kind of gets to the heart of America, and he sort of said, like, what ticked you off about that ad? And people press these buttons, and you can actually see in a statistical way what happens. But if you identify with the voter being angry at the ads that are angry at the ads actually are the most successful, right?
Anyway, we have one more day, but vote.
Yes, go out.
Yes, absolutely vote.
Yes.
But
so much attention on the midterm. I've never seen anything.
Especially when you hear that people are spending $40 million of their own money and $30 million. It's just like, oh, wow.
But my favorite really is, and I think it always has been my favorite when I see it, is when people say, I'm like you.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's Christine O'Donnell.
No, but it's like...
Well, that's Christine O'Donnell's ad.
$40 million to spend just to, get you to know my name. I mean, it's kind of crazy. You see them walking, like they're looking relaxed, and, they're not relaxed.
But don't be sedated by your hatred of the ads or the calls, because this election is so crucial right now to get out and actually move this nation in a direction that you really want. So I think to be lulled into these ad coma right now is not a good thing either. So
I don't think anybody's not going to. I think people are going to get out and vote. I think the talking heads have been saying, well, they're not going to get out. But I think everybody's going to get out there.
They're going to get out there.
I do. Now, what about, Barbara, you were talking about this rally to restore sanity or fear. Yeah. Explain, please.
So, you didn't go.
Were you there?
No, I did not go.
Right.
No. But my friend Ariane Huffington went, and she had said at one point that she would send, that the Huffington Post would pay, I think, for one bus. And I think they sent 12 buses. Well, okay. You remember Glenn Beck had this rally, which was a more or less political rally. So Jon Stewart, who was a comedian, at first designed this, we thought, as a joke, and then Stephen Colbert joined in. And the Jon Stewart was a rally to restore sanity, and enough of the screaming and yelling. Colbert was different. Colbert was to resort fear. to return
fear.
You know,
That's
so
ironic.
that was sort
He's
of,
being ironic.
So as it turns out, it was 215,000 people who came from all over to this.
More than Glenn Beck.
But they said unofficially, some people at the parks said that for Glenn Beck, it was like over 200,000 as well.
But there was one thing, and this is what I was saying to you, Whoopi, which is what I wanted to talk about. After the entertainment and the jokes and the music and so forth, Jon Stewart and some people, there was some poll I saw that said that he was the most influential person in America. I like Jon Stewart, but, I mean, hey, guys, you know, he's a comedian.
He's more influential than President Obama.
Well, according to one poll. Okay.
Yeah, that one poll did have him above the president.
Well, you know, but he said something for all of us that I think we should remember. And he was talking about the media and the role of the media. And we have heard Barack Obama saying, you know, this is a very different time for elections than we had in the past because the cable programs have so much influence. And he was talking about the fact that the cable programs and all media can do good or really serious harm by focusing on something and making such a big deal out of it. Let me just show you a little bit from his speech that impressed me.
The press can hold its magnifying glass up to our problems, bringing them into focus, illuminating issues heretofore unseen. Or they can use that magnifying glass to light ants on fire. And then perhaps host a week of shows on the sudden, unexpected, dangerous flaming ant epidemic. If we amplify everything, we hear nothing.
Well, I thought that was very. But whatever whatever your politics, whatever, he's talking about the press and that we do it. That you can take something and really, magnify it to the point where it does great harm. I thought that was important.
If you say that there's 9% unemployment, that means that there's 91% employment. Then that's not interesting to people. It's not news. You know, if you say 10% of the people have foreclosures, well, a lot more are keeping their homes. You know, most people are working, but it's not interesting, and it fires up the base.
It doesn't make it untrue, though, Joy. I mean, that number is quite large and has become more and more.
You're missing my point.
We need to focus on what's happening. What's happening is that number's been growing.
We're not talking about jobs for a second. We've heard this. What he is talking about is much more trivia, much more taking something, the ant, and just blowing it up. Jobs, yes, we hear about. You and Joy have this discussion every day.
But Barbara, you know what's very interesting?
Bad, but it's true, and I don't think we can say.
You do it every day, and we appreciate it. But that's not what he's talking about.
On the minds of most Americans.
That's not what we were talking about.
No, I understand. I think that to say that the press has the power to either highlight something that is important or then make something important that is nothing more than meager information or stat, I understand. I get that that's the point. I also think that in saying that, it underestimates the ability of most Americans who are so smart to decipher what is really going on. I think that the Americans, I think the point he's making is pretty much moot. The Americans out there, we understand when we read something if it's important or not, or how it relates to us personally.
I would challenge you on that, Elizabeth. I would challenge you on that because
I think we all know unemployment is a serious problem.
But in setting ants on fire, like what he's saying, I mean, we've had issues. I think so many people are in competition to get viewers, so they do that setting the ants on fire. It's like that guy who was going to, the pastor who was going to burn the Quran, I believe. Yeah. That is something that if maybe we had ignored it, it wouldn't have got gained as widespread attention. But so many people are trying to get the viewers, and they're competing with each other. Right. That I think that's what he's talking about.
Sure, but
where do you stop? Where do you say no?
Everybody realizes that we need jobs. Everybody realizes that there are important things that we hope will get done by the next Congress or the next Senate, and probably won't, by the way. But I think we realize that. But I think he was talking about the role of the press, and it's a new kind of role now with the internet and with the cable phone. What were you are smiling sagely?
It's all about ratings.
News is all about ratings.
I believe that in the early days of television, ratings for the news was of paramount importance as it is now. So ABC, CBS, NBC are constantly vying for ratings. And you have to, as they say, you have to smack the horse to get his attention.
The networks are not the ones doing this primarily.
Well, they're doing it too.
They're doing it
too. When going to your point, it used to be you didn't question when Walter Cronkite said, "This is what's happening." You had these three guys. You had the guys, Huntley Brinkley on 4, and I forget who was on 7, but at one point, somewhere, a lot of things began to collide. Facts. No one checks facts, so things get put out there and they go on and on and on, and then no one says, oh, we were wrong. It's all sort of struck down. What I think John is saying, which is to your point, Barbara, is that we just could be a little more careful. Sure. It's not so much don't look at what's being said, but just take a deeper look and not just go, I think, with on the surface. I think that's what news talk.
When that Shirley Sherrod's video got out, and you got a woman who got fired.
Do your homework. And it's all of us. It's the president, it's us, it's the little kids,
but with
it's everybody.
With the viral information, it goes out so fast.
None of these ads give any solutions either. I watch them and they're just crazy.
Well,
no one says anything.
The greatest thing that the ads do is they send you to the bathroom on time. Yeah, we'll be right back with more Hot Topics. You suddenly realize... Yeah, we will. You know, our friend Portia de Rossi is on Oprah later today talking about her battle with anorexia. Now, she dropped to 82 pounds just eating 300 calories a day. Now, if you knew a friend was in this sort of condition, whether they be too big or too small, would you feel comfortable about confronting them about it?
A lot of times when you tell somebody, let's take a hugely obese person, they turn on you. They don't want, they know they're heavy. They look in the mirror. They go to the stores to try on clothes. So you're considered really just being obtrusive, I think, and then it's none of your beeswax type of thing.
On the flip side of that, someone who may be dealing with anorexia or bulimia, when confronted about it, sometimes it does feed in a way the sort of addiction that they have or compulsion or obsession with weight, it sometimes can be counterproductive. So I think it's a very
if you are bulimic or anorexic, you don't see yourself.
That's right.
No,
so you might think they were absolutely...
Yeah. If you try to... Two things happen, because I've tried. In both cases, somebody who is obese and somebody whom I think is much too thin.
What did you do?
I tried to say something. They get mad, or they don't think it's them. Right. So I don't know I really don't know what the answer is. You can talk about it and they think, not me.
Does it need to be more of an intervention, Barbara? More than one person?
It's very bad.
Well, when you say it's you.
When you're talking about drugs or drinking, that's when people have an intervention. And I guess if it's anorexia, at some point,
it's harder with thinness, I think, because when you're obese, you eventually, the doctor will say you have diabetes, you have an arrhythmic, whatever, heart problems, and et cetera. But with thin people, if you say to someone, you're really getting too thin, they either think you're jealous or that they take it as a compliment.
It's interesting too, though, because we have both of these things happening at the same time, right?
Well, let me tell you my philosophy of myself. If I don't love the person, if it's not a sister, a brother, a mother, a daughter, I would keep my mouth shut because I don't. They don't want to hear it from you. If you love someone, you can risk they're getting mad at you.
Of course.
But I don't know. If I like somebody and I'm concerned about them, I'm going to say it, and I take the shot, and sometimes they go, oh, not me, and sometimes they go, oh,
well, tell us how you would say it to somebody. I mean, I don't know how you do it. How do you do it?
I say, you know what? You look so good, but if you lose any more weight, it's not going to be as good looking.
Really? I think I look gorgeous.
That's all right.
You're going to get.
I would say
But the thing is not what their response to you is, it's what you think you should do. I only take responsibility for what I said. So now when they're going up the stairs and they can't make it and they keel over, I say, I did mention this to you. I brought this up and you didn't want to hear it, but now let me take you to the hospital.
I went to when I was at the store buying some bras, and it was a bigger person store, and there were two girls that walked in, and they were younger girls, and just huffing and puffing, and I remember I was thinking diabetes, and it was just, I didn't know these girls, but it was an overwhelming feeling of, I gotta say something before they leave, and I went up to them and I said, I'm diabetic, and this is what it did for me, and I'm just, because I don't want to see you like this. They had a really big attitude.
What'd they say? Mind your own business.
Basically, well, bleep, you better get the bleep out of here, because I know you're not. You know, and it's just like, but it was just such a, I was so concerned.
Yeah. Did you feel better after you did it?
Well, you know what? All you can do is say.
Well, that's what I'm saying. All you can do is
But if you don't go with the solution,
something.
I think you also need to approach. If the situation's dire, you need to also approach with a solution, or maybe come in with more than one
What do you
person.
say?
I think professionally.
I was talking about you this weekend because I was just saying to our audience, we argue on camera. We never seem to argue off camera.
No.
And you know I adore you.
I love you.
So I was talking to somebody who said, you know, they love seeing you. You're so cute, and they love the way you dress, but you're much too thin.
But I'm not. Like,
I said,
I've got a butt.
Well, people, and I've said, I don't think so. I think she's got an adorable figure. Do people tell you you're too thin?
I mean, some people have said that to me at times. I agree. There were times in my life where I was maybe too thin, and I think now I'm in a place where I feel that I want to be healthy. I want to be able to pick up my kids. I work out.
So
I like to eat.
Says to you, look at this.
Fit and strong.
Yeah, so if somebody says you're too thin, what do you say?
You know, I think you have to consider the source, and I also think that I'm a person who likes to be fit and strong and healthy, and I'm in a place in my life where I need to be that for people in my family as well. Like, here's what I think is happening. I think that a lot of moms right now, in my position, have sort of this latecomer, maybe body dysmorphia eating disorder, because we're being told by a lot of publications that you need to look a certain way, and then we're passing it on to kids. So I think we're in a strange situation where we're seeing both obesity and anorexia and bulimia at the same time, both escalating. Nobody's
And we
good
have
enough.
people in Hollywood who are out of shape, and we don't say anything, and it's like they need to.
No, they say something. They show pictures.
Yeah,
Let's be realistic. My God, if you not overweight. If you have a little butt fat, it's on the biggest picture that you can find. Because for some reason there is something out there that wants to keep this idea of what you're supposed to look like. No, what this ideal is. And the ideal does not exist because we as human beings put on a little weight, we take off a little weight. Sometimes the chest starts to fall, the booty starts to fall. And some of this stuff, you know, is just going to happen.
Can I just say one thing about what you said?
You can say many things, yes.
The most important thing that I got out of this is you can't say to someone, you know, you're too thin. Your advice was so good. If you say, you know, you're so beautiful and you look so, but if you lose any more, then you're really complimenting them. That's the most important thing I've got.
You need to be direct. I think you need to say your heart's going to stop. Your kids are not going to have a mom. You're not going to be able to
That's what it took for me to lose weight when the doctor said you're going to have a stroke and have your face.
But these people say my doctor says I'm fine.
I don't know if that's. I think you got to be more
Your doctor needed to say that to you.
But
when we said to you, Sherry, don't put on any more weight. You said, no, I'm not gonna.
You say it to me all the time. Whoopi, you get on me about eating.
That's right.
And you're direct.
Yes, I am.
You don't couch it.
But I do couch it. Believe me, I do couch it. We'll be right back with even more hot topics. Yes, we. You know, the New York Times ran an article on how some people don't shower on a daily basis, saying if their jobs aren't physically taxing, they don't need to, and it's better for your skin and better for the environment.
I don't agree with that. You have to shower every day. I mean, even Randy Quaid showers every day, and he's living in a bus stop.
Some people use those.
They say we're not farmers.
But some people use those crystal rocks. Like some people tell me, you know, because the aluminum in the deodorant, they say use a crystal rock. And I tried that crystal rock. I was stinking all day.
Exactly.
Crystal rock does not work.
I spent 39 days in the Australian outback without deodorant, shaving, all that, showering. I was funky. I would highly recommend taking care of yourself.
Everybody around you was funky, so you don't smell it.
Let me just tell you this. It was not good for anybody's enviveness to be that smelly.
First of all, they're not playing Survivor.
No, they are not.
What they are saying is, they say,
please shower.
They say it all began when people had to, you know, do serious heavy work. And they say if you do under your arms, between your legs, and there was a third place, your feet maybe, and your feet.
It's called a PTA.
What is that? What's a PTA?
What's PTA?
What Barbara's talking about.
Parent Teachers Association.
Parent Teachers, okay. So
I know what that is.
Okay.
Oh, I know what that is.
What do I know what this is?
I would like to continue. Then we have
tell you, but I don't. You figure it. I'll tell you later.
Okay, but the point is, they say if you take the places, folks, if you take the places where you may most perspire or where there may be a little scent, S-C-E-N-T, and you just do a sponge bath, why am I?
No.
You see, the thing is, like, you have to
shower.
No, you gotta immerse yourself in some water.
Okay, how many parents do we have here, right? Let's use kids as an example, all right? How many parents, you know, unless you're dunking those little bodies.
Stink. Ooh.
Let me tell you something.
Shower.
I can only do it every other day because the water dries my skin so much that I scratch it until it bleeds.
That's good every other day.
That's
Every other day. So it is
What
possible
day are we on
to do.
today?
Well, see, here's the thing. If it was a problem, you would know. You would have known already. Come here, baby. Now, do you want to smell everywhere? You know, people in the theater, especially dancers, you know, this is how when they have two shows, that's what you have to do. You got to sponge off.
Although the one thing that, I mean, there are times when all I'm thinking about is, I'm going to take a hot bath.
Really?
And it has nothing to do with being clean.
You just want to sit in the tub.
Get a bidet. Get a bidet. And
What's a bidet?
You know what it is.
No, of course I do, but
You're
I'm talking about
certain parts.
No, I'm talking
Speaking
about
of a
taking a hot
bidet.
bath to relax. I'm not taking a hot bath.
Speaking of a bidet, you know,
night.
newlyweds sometimes have questions about bidets, don't they, Sherry?
Yes, and tonight is a big night for me because I am now the new host of the Newlywed Game, which will be premiering tonight on the Game Show Network on GSN tonight at 6 o'clock, and I'm very excited.
A little birdie told me that you are remarkable on that show, and that it is so funny.
Following in the steps of one of the first African-American women to host a game show, which was you on Hollywood Square.
I didn't host it. I produced it.
You executive produced
Yes.
it, and you hosted it.
Are you
No, I didn't host it. Tom Bergeron hosted it.
Yes. No, I'm trying to follow in your footsteps.
That's all right.
Absolutely. So it's just nice to see. You always saw a network with older white men, and so it's really exciting to do this.
Oh, cool.
As a black woman,
Well,
yeah.
congratulations. And how will it make you feel better, Sherry?
It will make me feel better because I have a word for my sponsor. You know what? If you're like me, you don't have enough time or energy to do everything you want in a day. Well, daylight savings time ends November 7th, and we're going to gain, yes, an extra hour when we set our clocks back. Now, the makers of Centrum are inviting you to pledge to use that time to indulge in life's greatest pleasures. For example, our executive producer, Bill Getty, is going to hit the gym, indulge in some me time, and make some time for a date night. Ladies, it's time to empower ourselves to achieve better health for life and love. Along with a healthy diet and exercise, multivitamins like Centrum Women's Health provide recommended amounts of vitamins and minerals each day. Visit lovefeelinghealthy.com to take the pledge. Receive a $3 off coupon for Centrum Women's or Centrum Men's and enter for a chance to win an ultimate getaway for 2 and other great prizes. So to celebrate making time for what matters most, the makers of Centrum are giving members of our audience a goodie bag filled with items for life and love, including Centrum Women's multivitamins.
So when we come back, we are coming back with the ABC News' Brian Ross, and he's got the very latest on Friday's terror event. You don't want to miss this, because if he says it, it's pretty much what's going on. Come back with us.
Suspicious packages sent from Yemen were found on cargo planes in several U.S. cities. Al-Qaeda, of course, is the #1 suspect. And even though the worst didn't happen, the authorities report that right now we are at the highest risk of being attacked since 9/11. So here with the very latest is ABC News chief investigative correspondent Brian Ross. And as Whoopi said, Brian, you always seem to know more and better informed than some other. You're such a good journalist.
Thank you very much.
So we believe that the 2 bombs found inside the cargo packages, we now feel that they were supposed to blow up the planes, even though we heard that they were directed at the synagogues in Chicago. Which is it, the planes or the synagogues?
They were addressed to synagogues in Chicago with 8-year out-of-date addresses. And now they've taken apart. These were bombs hidden in printers, Hewlett-Packard desktop printers, and it went right through all the security screening because nothing showed up as being unusual.
So the synagogues was a ruse?
To make it appear that they were some sort of legitimate shipment.
I see.
The bomb-sniffing dogs could not detect it either.
Not in this case, this particular explosive.
Yeah.
And it ends up in the end, the U.S. only was able to figure this out because the Saudi intelligence service actually was able to get the tracking numbers from FedEx and UPS and spot the parcels. One was in Dubai, one was in England.
But we don't know how many more there may be.
Exactly right.
Do we know much about the al-Qaeda person behind, the bomb maker behind this?
This is a 28-year-old twisted genius, Ibrahim al-Asiri. And he actually has built bombs before. He was the one who constructed the bomb for the underwear bomber. It was going to blow up the flight over Detroit. He also sent his own brother in with a bomb in his rectum to blow up the head of Saudi intelligence. He killed...
Where is he from, Brian?
He is a Saudi. He's 20 years old.
Can that be detected by an X-ray if someone has a bomb in his rectum?
You'd have to do almost an MRI.
They do the body
bring
check
on the MRIs. Yeah. I mean, is this... will we be able to find him? I mean, if he's this good.
Well, they are, let me assure you, they are looking for him he is really a clear and present danger to the U.S. because he figured out how to do this printer bomb that got by all the security. And it fooled everybody, but for that tip from Saudi intelligence,
you wonder how Saudi
those
intelligence knew it.
Okay, so that tip provided, because this is important, that tracking numbers, right, which allowed us to actually locate these. If we had not gotten that tip, we would have been
Saudi Arabia so interested in the United States being safe?
We have cooperation.
There is cooperation, truly, as you know when you were there, Barbara. In fact, I was looking at your report. They were so good that we used some of them in our piece over the weekend, yes. But the Saudis, of course, are the target of al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda's ultimate goal will be to overthrow the royal family of Saudi Arabia. So they have a very much a vested interest there.
You know, we are now, we were just talking a moment ago with Sherry, because a lot of people don't even know where Yemen is, which is on the border of Saudi Arabia. It's a country we barely heard about. So I have to ask you a political question, and that is, what do we do about Yemen? Here we are in Afghanistan. We're worried about Pakistan. We're getting out of Iraq. Yemen?
Yemen, with 500 or 600 trained al-Qaeda fighters, some of them Americans, some of them ex-cons from prisons who have gone to Yemen, and they are led essentially in a philosophical way by this radical cleric al-Awlaki. And al-Awlaki is there. He has urged fellow Muslims to attack the U.S. He was born in this country. Brian? Well, the CIA and the U.S. military have been given permission by the White House, essentially, to kill him, even though he's a U.S. citizen. And that's their best resort at this point. Yemen doesn't really have full control of its own country. Only 35% is controlled by the central government. So it is a pickle.
You just have to rely on tips and espionage, I believe.
Well, good intelligence is really the best answer.
Good intelligence works.
Yeah, absolutely. In this case, but for that.
Yeah, exactly.
But just us individual citizens, what do we do? Just...
Were those tips offered voluntarily, or were these ones that were squeezed out?
I don't know the backstory of how they got the information, but I do know it was crucial, and they were able to actually track the packages.
FedEx does that overseas. They have all of these numbers.
It's UPS.
UPS and FedEx, and they sent 2 packages, both to Chicago, one by UPS, one by FedEx. The FedEx package actually traveled on 2 different commercial flights with passengers.
So they're out
full
for
bomb.
airplanes. But they're out for passenger planes, right?
Well, the cargo.
Yeah, but then there's the name. What about cargo planes?
Right.
How do you...
Passenger planes, you mean?
Well, no, I'm talking about
cargo. The ones that we're concerned about as well now.
Well, cargo can be carried on a passenger plane. It does happen.
Right.
Under U.S. law in the last month or so, the requirement that 100% of cargo on passenger planes in this country has to be screened. The problem is the screening would not have picked this up. It would not have been apparent.
So, you know, Sherry asked a question, and we don't want to scare everybody about flying because people have to fly. Yeah. But, I mean, you didn't want to fly from the last movie.
The family's flying.
But you know, what does this say? What can anyone do?
Can we not fly anymore?
No, I think that if you talk to the experts, they would say that domestically, that pretty much is shut down. They have a good handle on that. They don't think.
Do they?
So they feel they do. The real danger is the reach from places like Yemen or Pakistan into this country, and that's
What about Paris and London?
Yeah.
well, all of that. If they can get the materials to Rome or to Paris or London, that's a threat.
Let me ask you this, Brian, because last week we were talking about in Hot Topics, one of the guys in Britain said, you know, you Americans, you screen for like soap, you over-screening stuff, it's ridiculous. You think he's eating a little crow now?
I think he's eating a lot of crow. That was the head of British Air. And he said, you have to take your shoes off, unnecessary. I don't think anybody's thinking that this week, following what happened. Yeah.
Do we ever follow the Israelis in any of these things that we do to try to prevent? I mean, they seem to have it down.
They do, and they put more effort into it, and they rely less so much on the equipment, but more on sort of the ability to talk to people and figure out who's nervous.
If you're going to Israel, I mean, the kinds of questions that they ask and the people who are trained to look for certain things. And Brian, thank you.
Thank you,
It's
Barbara.
always a pleasure
Thanks
to
for
have
being
you.
here.
And for more of Brian Ross's reporting, you can watch World News with Diane Sawyer tonight. There'll be more on ABC. Thank you. We'll be right back.
In 2008, Eliot Spitzer resigned as governor of New York in disgrace after being caught with escort Ashley Dupre. But surprisingly, he agreed to be interviewed for the new documentary Client 9, The Rise and Fall of Eliot Spitzer, where he tries to explain why paying for sex seemed like the lesser of two evils. Take a look.
Don't want to delve into, certainly don't want to speak for others, and even in my own case, don't really want to speak to that issue except to say that you cave to temptations in a way that perhaps seems easier and perhaps is, in some very twisted way, less damaging.
Less damaging how?
Than having affairs or relationships that take on a different tenor.
I'm sorry, that had what?
The relationships that take on a different tenor.
You mean have some sort of emotional component?
Perhaps, yeah.
We're now joined by the madam who arranged Spitzer's tryst with Ashley Dupre, Cece Suwal. Welcome, Cece. Nice to have you. Now, you were a 20-year-old college student. You had a drug problem when you started as an escort at the Emperor's Club. How did you go on to become a madam?
Well, the person who was running the service at that time was someone who I fell in love with, and we began to reform the business, grow it, make it international, obtain much higher quality clients and women who worked with us.
You fell in love with him. How old was he?
At the time, in his early 60s.
And you were how old?
She was in her 20s.
About 20 years old.
Now you're married to him.
20. Now we're married, yes.
What did your parents think about that?
My parents were happy that I was happy. They saw that he was generally a very good person.
But while you were doing the other thing, where did they think you were?
At the Emperor's Club.
When you were at the Emperor's Club as an escort.
You were the madam.
Yeah. Or the
Where did they think I was?
What did they think you were doing?
I was living in New York with the person that I was in love with, and we didn't really go much into that.
You know, you served 6 months in jail, and so did the man who is now your husband.
Yeah.
And when they screened the film at one of the theaters, because you're very appealing in this film. You're giggly and cute and lovable, and you're cute sitting here. And the audience loved you. They applauded you. But at one point, you said how proud you were of this escort service. What are you so proud of?
Well, I don't remember saying I was proud, but I do know that Mark and I were running what was, you know, a very successful, private, highly exclusive, multi-million-dollar company, and the better of our clients, many of them did not come to us with the intention to break the law or breach regulations. Yes, that was also happening, which is why we were arrested. Yeah. But I don't remember saying I was proud, but what we were doing was definitely commendable in some ways. Obviously, it was controversial too. It was controversial too.
Controversial indeed.
Yeah, what's commendable? Tell us that.
By the way, we should say that Eliot Spitzer was Client 9. That's where the title came from.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you think is commendable?
Well, we were successful as a business, and we started from basically nothing. And in that respect, I guess you can commend that particular aspect of it.
The free enterprise part of it.
A question for you, just because I'm interested. He gave a very interesting explanation as to why he used your service. Do you get that, or did you get that from a lot of the married clients who used your service because they didn't want to go out and have trysts or fall in love or do any of those things? Or is he sort of, you know, dancing a little bit?
He's the only person that I've heard say anything like that. Most of the people that were coming to our service, we didn't ask them why they were coming or whether they were married or not. Some people probably were looking for more long-term relationships. Others probably were doing what he was doing.
Right. Yeah, and speaking of him, a bomb is dropped in this movie. It's going to really blow people away. Ashley Dupre, she's made a name for herself as Spitzer's girl. She was a guest on the show. We all assumed that she was Spitzer's go-to, his regular, but that's not the case, correct?
Well, they met one time, and that
Only
was
one time.
That was one time, yeah.
So this was not. So she's created this entire idea of herself and career.
How do you feel
as
about
being
that?
his girl? When
And by the
it
way,
was really one time.
He did have a long-term girlfriend who doesn't appear in this, but her voice is. There was somebody who...
name was
not girlfriend.
Angelina.
but-
How do you feel about Ashley making all that money and getting all that attention?
I think that if that's good for her, you know, I mean, why
It's
debunk her?
commendable,
Leave
right?
it alone. I mean, let the girl be happy. Just let it be. If that's what happened, it was meant to happen.
Well, what about the girl that he actually was his regular, which her name, she worked under the name Angelina. So tell us about her.
Well, Angelina was trying to build a name for herself in the art industry in New York, and she had absolutely no interest in exposing herself to the public because she was more interested in cultivating her career in New York. And that's what she did. And most of the women that worked with us, you'll notice that they didn't come out because they were models, they were students, and they had goals.
By the way, how much did they get paid on an average for a night?
It depends.
Like
it can
you
range
said-
anywhere from, you know, $10,000 to,
one
you know,
night.
$250,000 for a week. It depended on the client and the woman. And,
So these were just women who you said were models. What type of women did you?
Students, you said?
Students.
fashion
A lot of
models,
students?
One girl was getting her PhD. You know, just
And
just,
the men were primarily who paying this kind of money.
the one thing that they all had in common was that they were extremely wealthy, the highest financial elite.
Do you think that prostitution should be legal? Would you make as much money if it was legal?
I don't think that it would even make any sense for me to answer that question because it's not going to change whether it is or isn't. And I have no interest either way at this point. I'm done.
Who benefits if it's legal or not? Would a company like yours, a situation like your company's, would that benefit from it being legal
I
at all?
have no interest in running an escort service, so at this point I just have no take.
So what do you and your husband
Right now,
do
you and
now?
your husband are writing a book. They're
My
writing a book.
husband and I are working on a book that is somewhat related to the course of events, but definitely interprets everything from a much more distant, perhaps more meaningful perspective. And we also have a website where people can see what our book is about and download letters that we've written to each other during our separation and contact us.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Oh, so I'm sorry. I just had one more question. Just because, you know...
No, we have no...
Oh, sorry. We're out of time. Sorry. I'll
Cece.
ask you in the back.
Okay, thank you so much for coming. Client 9, The Rise and Fall of Elliot Spitzer, opens in Sauk Cities Friday, November 5th. We'll be right back.
Only on The View, baby. Have a great day. Take a little time to enjoy The View.